Hey everyone, Audengraph here, and on this episode of the Untrained Ear, we are going to be talking about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with their recent release, Phantom Island. So, Phantom Island is the 27th studio album from the prolific Australian rock band that is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This is a bluesy rock uh, album with a very lush orchestral supplemental package included. This album really has this vintage 70s rock sound about it, and the lush orchestral instrumentation is so diverse and powerful that the project really sounds, for lack of any better description, complete from beginning to end. I think that there is a true sense of fun throughout this piece, which really provides this sense of laid back and enjoyable atmosphere, despite the clear professional vibe that exists throughout this project. I think truly this is a well honed band that has a lot of experience, and that kind of lends to the downside, which is that they are truthfully very comfortable with the sound. And with that, there tends to be kind of a lean towards a sameness and unity in the sonic palette, which means that sometimes I think the album suffers from a little bit of lack of diversity, where there could be a little bit more explored in the sonic palette. But for me, this wasn't a huge gripe because I think that the sonic palette itself is very different from a lot that's being released right now. So, in that essence itself, it was very interesting. But I could see where probably a lot of longtime fans are probably very exhausted from a lot of what is coming out. And with this kind of more long winded album, uh, maybe we're feeling by the end like they could have done with a few tracks that were a little bit more multi-phased and diverse. Not to say that this album is lacking in that by any means, but maybe one or two more tracks that had a little bit more to offer could have been a bonus. Truthfully, there are a lot of songs to celebrate, I felt like, on this album, but I kind of narrowed it down to four. The first of which would be the opener track, Phantom Island, for which the album is named. I felt like I really loved the orchestral elements in this and many of the other tracks on the album. For this one in particular, I felt like they fostered a sense of grandiosity to the track, and you can tell, especially with this one, that that's the vibe they're really going for. I felt like especially the opening to this track is really bluesy, between the horns and the drums, guitar chords tandem. And then the transition in the last like 2 minutes to the more like speed metal vibe that you get is super cool. The horn woodwind mesh with the guitar and the bass riffs is really potent, in the sense of building like tension. And then lacing in the orchestral strings really kind of crafted this horror esque vibe to the track that I thought was just really cool and potent. So I'm definitely a fan of Phantom Island. I'm going to straight up jump into Dead Stick by saying it is by far my favorite track on the album. It's dynamic and it's invigorating in all the best ways. The sax is absolutely to die for on this one alongside the drums. The vocals in this track are super invigorating as well, especially from the third verse onward. It just has this really like ramped up 70s energy in just all the best ways. The trumpets are also soaring on this track, and the guitar really jives with them in this very exciting and interesting way as well. I think no matter how you slice this one from front to back, it is a track to be remembered on this album, a track to be remembered for this year, and truthfully, just a really exciting and interesting track all around. With Lonely Cosmos, I think, in contrast to the majority of this album, you get a kind of softer palette sonically. It has this very lovely, tamed down, plucky sound to it with the string arpeggios. It takes sinister turns in moments with this very nice jarve with the darker cosmic tone of the lyrics. It accomplishes this through heavier strings, specifically through the cello often. There's also some dark, like synth tones that are added in. And I think sonically, this track is very important for the album because it's a mix up compared to a lot of the other tracks that are used on the album. And for that, I think, especially in an album that's kind of lacking in the sonic diversity palette. This track is paramount, and it accomplishes mixing things up. So for that, the album is indebted to its existence. So for me, Lonely Cosmos is an integral part of the album and welcome for sure. As the third track, I wish there were more like it. I loved it. With Panpsych, I think this is a track that really makes you want to bob your head and groove. It has this very infectious, groovy vibe thanks to dynamic bass play, electric guitar, and keyboard elements. The vocals are awesome and they croon in this particularly satisfying way that really enhances the aesthetic to the track. I think the idea of panpsychism is a very 70s concept that makes so much sense to make a talking point on an album that has this sort of aesthetic to it. And I really think this track is very cerebral in terms of using the lyrics uh, and honing them. They do this excellent job at playing at these everyday colloquialisms and expressions and using them as bridges into panpsychism. And then using the whole track as this blend between the lyrics, the vocals, and the music as all a symbolic tie into this idea of the oneness of the mind and the body, and just all of the symbolic measures that go into it. I think this track is cerebral, it's intelligent, it's groovy, it's really all the pieces you want in more cerebral music. So I'm a huge fan of it, obviously. And I think it's a testament to the idea that the front half of this album is just super strong, in my opinion. And so, yeah, really jiving with it overall. In terms of criticism on this album, I think I've already kind of touched on this a bit, but the front half of the album I think is super strong, and then as you get later on into the album, I think you kind of get worn down by the sameness of the tracks from track to track, where the 70s aesthetic is kind of hammered in, and you're kind of sitting in that wheelhouse. And while it's very novel in the beginning, I think that as the same kind of isms are played into with it, I think it kind of starts to wear you down by the end. I think they could have used a couple more multi phase tracks to diversify this, and maybe one or two more sonic cleansers a la like Lonely Cosmos, to kind of mix things up and diversify the sonic palette and refresh the listener. And that's really the only bar that was holding this back from being a stronger album, in my opinion. But overall, I really think that this album is good. I think that with a band like this, where they're so prolific, they've been around for only 15 years and they have, 20 some odd albums put out, 27. I think it's easy to have their music blend together, but it's important with bands as prolific as this, with such a, you know, massive backlog of music, to hold in context the other music that's coming out at the same time as this, and understand that when you're comparing this to other music that's coming out right now, this is very strong comparatively. And so, my job right now is to compare this to other things that are coming out this year. And from that perspective, when I look at this album and compare it to the others, I'm going to employ a baseless rating here of a nostalgic 9.